Coach Prime, Deion, we're looking at you. You too, Mike McCarthy, and a whole host of others. The CHGO Bears Podcast starts right now. Deion Sanders, Mike McCarthy, Joe Brady, Matt Nagy, Greg Braggs, Adam Hoge, Mark Carman. This is the CHGO Bears Podcast. The names just keep flying as the coaching search that will never end is in, day 3 of 1,000. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Monday through Friday at 1. And, of course, if any news breaks, we're right here for you. Hoge is at home to start the show today because he's working diligently on 7,000 things. Braggs, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. Before we get going, shout out to my guy Luis at the Citadel as I was stopping by to see my good old Papa Fred, who, appreciated his support on good old dad, 99 years old, doing a nice rehab, working his way back to playing shape. And Luis, huge fan of the CHGO Bears show, Hoge. I dropped off his coffee and his papers, which is one of my favorite things to do each day. So shout out Luis.
Shout out to Luis. We're banging away at this coaching tracker. If you guys haven't checked it out, you should. allchgo.com/coaching search. You know what I love about? I swear your dad's age changes every time you mention it. I don't know why. I can't zero in. Like one day I feel like he's 93. The next he's 99.
99,
am I crazy or am I just not listening?
You're not listening. 99, December 16, 1925. Was back to punt for Marshall High School back in 1942. Bad snap. I think it was Whitehair that flung it to him. Got away from him, picked it up, ran 100 yards, beat Harrison 7-zip. That's the greatest accomplishment in the history of the Carman family. 99, and which has been horrifying for the fine people that love this show because they think that I'm going to live to 99. But don't worry, my habits are way worse than my dad's. I'll be out of here fair. I'm not, Dr. Pepper 10 times a day, but I got some work to do. Hey, can we start with the guy that's name is Deion Sanders, who apparently the Cowboys are very interested in talking to? Did you guys have any reaction to Dallas talking to Deion and any level of jealousy or desire? Like, why aren't the Bears talking to Deion? Did that happen to anyone on the show other than me?
No, I didn't. No, I wouldn't ever think that he's a real option for the Bears, but I was intrigued when I heard the story. I think it'd be fun for the NFL if he went to the Cowboys.
Hoge went right to Hoge resting face when I asked that question. It just popped right on his face. It did.
No, I guess the answer is no. I don't. I like Deion Sanders. I've been I'm well on record of being like, love everything he's been doing. I've watched more Colorado football than I have in my entire life, at least since back in the day when they used to play Nebraska on the Friday after Thanksgiving, and I wish that tradition still existed. So I'm all for the Deion Coach Prime entertainment. I'm also very biased in that if he's going to make a move away from Colorado, I would really prefer him to stay within the ALLCITY family. Thank you very much. So great news. DLLS down there in Dallas. Just make the move right over there. We're fine with that. By the way, we got Jesse Holley coming on later from DLLS to talk about Deion, talk about Mike McCarthy, talk about all the connections to Dallas right now with the Cowboys. But no, I don't think that he's. If there is a spot where he works out as an NFL head coach, I think that spot is Dallas because of his connections there with Jerry Jones and maybe making that work. I'll be intrigued to see how it goes if that happens. I think it would be a disaster with the Chicago Bears.
Well, it just seems like he would I always kind of envision if he's going to go to the NFL this year, it's because he wants to coach his sons, or at least one of his sons, in Deion Sanders, the quarterback.
Sure.
And so what teams have a reasonable route to be able to make that happen for the Sanders family? Maybe Dallas sits at 12, and that's where Shedeur falls, or they have to trade up. But you look at the Raiders or the Giants, like those are the teams I thought maybe would come into the fold. And I had kind of gotten to the point where I was like, okay, he's staying in college, but nothing surprises me. And no, yesterday's report didn't surprise me, but I don't expect the Bears to get in on the Deion action.
So, okay, and that makes sense. Probably would love to coach his son in the NFL. That'd be a sweet gig for Deion. The reason why,
Carm, let me tee you up on this because you're the one who really wants to answer your own question here.
I do. I do.
Why do you want Deion Sanders to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears?
Okay. Well, there's a couple reasons. Let's start number one with the Bears need a massive culture, confidence, arrogance shift. Enough with the cute things that we're doing, enough with whatever the Bears think they are with their great, we're doing great in the community, not winning games, all these things. You need a winner. Deion wins. 27-6 at Jackson State. He got to Colorado. They were a 1-win team. They won 4 games last year. They won 9 this year. That's a significant improvement. He won 2 times as a player. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's the whole everything about Deion is arrogance and confidence and culture building. He, the whole thing before he got to Colorado, I'm coming. I think it would be incredibly entertaining if Deion Sanders started saying, I'm coming to Chicago and I'm shaking everything up. I'd love to see, it's just, I saw it in the chat. Can you imagine George McCaskey hearing that Deion is coming? Like, that would be massively entertaining for me. And that's the other thing too. I am here, at the end of the day, I don't know if the Bears are ever going to get there. I hope they do. I think there's a lot of good candidates. I think they're actually going to come out fine any way they go here. But if it does go the other way, at least with Deion, it would be massively entertaining.
Well, let's not lie, though. I mean, you said the key word there, entertaining. Because you're saying all these things about the team and the culture, and it may or may not work out with the Bears, but for you personally, what intrigues you about it.
For us.
Exactly.
For us.
For us.
Yeah.
The entertainment
for the
factor.
Yes.
Well, not just for the city, for what you do for a living. Going into Hallis Hall, asking questions,
right? But
not having a Matt Eberflus type. Because when you say, well, I would love a coach that has arrogance, our team needs arrogance, none of this cute stuff. I mean, I can remember when we watched the Hard Knocks, and did the post-game Hard Knocks shows, when they did the Jordan song, with Caleb Williams, you didn't like that.
Yeah, because it was ridiculous.
That's arrogance, though.
No, but no. That's a good try to put me into a corner. I appreciate the angle here, but like that was more so.
Box out of this corner.
You were elevating someone.
Now, winning culture, I agree, but arrogance culture, that's we need to wipe that away.
That's right? What Deion Braggs is right. By the way, are we wearing the same sweatshirt? That's embarrassing.
Queens.
I don't know why it took me 8 minutes into the show for me to realize that, but
I didn't notice it.
But that is Deion. He's right.
Yeah, but that's look. I'm not saying he's not arrogant. I'm not saying that he's not ridiculous. I'm just saying with the Bears thing that he's trying to tie it to with arrogance, with saying that Caleb is Jordan that was just ridiculous.
I just hope it happens. Sorry for cutting you off, but I just hope it happens because then it eliminates the Cowboys as a Ben Johnson threat, who I'm not giving up on yet, even though everyone in Chicago seems to have given up on it already because of the McCarthy news.
Is that your read on Bears Twitter that they've given up on Ben
Everybody
Johnson?
seems to is already like resigned to second. All right, we'll just take this guy, which is fine. I'm just saying, all right, let's get as many options as we can off the table in the Ben Johnson Derby.
Well, and listen, let's just maybe Ben Johnson will get wooed by Dallas and Dak Prescott and all the things and the security of working for Jerry Jones, all of that, but like. And Hoge, we in our pre-show meeting here, you were talking about. I mean, Dallas decided, hey, we're not letting anybody talk to Mike McCarthy because he's our property. This guy works for us; he's our employee. And now 3 seconds later, they're like straight to Deion. Whereas New England, okay, we're moving on. We're going straight to Mike Vrabel. The Bears, you fired Matt Eberflus with 5 weeks to go in the season. And yet here we are, and it's like, let's just cast another wide net out there and find the Packers offensive coordinator now. So get to 20. It's like, at least, like, Dallas. Okay, if we're moving on with Mike, where are we going? I think, I'm going to try to woo Deion out of Colorado.
Well, let me ask you this, Adam. Do you think that them saying, all right, we're not going to roll with you any further, Mike McCarthy, was a sign that they already talked to Deion, that this is more of a realistic possibility than just a leverage standpoint?
Yes. I mean, I think that's the point of this conversation. Like, you think the Patriots fired Gerard Mayo without knowing Mike Vrabel was coming there?
Right.
Maybe, but they probably felt like 90% sure that was happening. And it was probably higher than that. Where the Cowboys have been the last week, I mean, obviously the first thing that came out yesterday was like, oh, wow, they screwed this up because they can't talk to Ben Johnson now until the Lions season's over. Or maybe they know exactly what they're doing and they've already lined up, a couple of options that they know that they can pursue here. One being Deion, that they probably were already starting to have those conversations with, at least back channel, before they. Because look at how the reporting came out yesterday on what happened with McCarthy. It's like they had a bunch of discussions, but at the end of the day, McCarthy didn't feel like the Cowboys were committing to him. They really wouldn't narrow down the length of the contract extension and all things like that. So that tells you the Cowboys had their eye on somebody else. And this is how, normal, good, well-run operations operate, which is the point. So we might live in a world where the Bears have actually secretly been doing this with Ben Johnson for weeks and weeks and weeks since they fired Matt Eberflus. Maybe, but they're not really putting that show out there. They're not communicating that very well with, we're going to interview every coach that exists in the world.
Well, and it takes you back to last year, right? Look, Rick Renteria wouldn't have gotten fired by the Cubs if they didn't know they were going right to Joe Madden. The Bears could have Renteria'd Eberflus last year if they knew they were going right to Jim Harbaugh or whoever last year.
The Cubs did it last year again with Counsell.
Right, exactly. See, we're moving on from this is what winning organizations do. I mean, if you wanted to stay in Chicago, the Bulls knew they were moving from Doug Collins to Phil Jackson. Like, this is how this works.
The Blackhawks did it with Quinville. Right, with one of their legends, with Dennis Savard. And they're like, sorry, man, we're leveling up here.
Right, this guy is available, so we appreciate you. We made a decent hire with you. You did the job we asked you to do, but now we're moving along. Bears could have done that with the Flus. Hey, man, we really appreciate the way you didn't embarrass us in 2 terrible years for the franchise, took us to the bottom, but we think that you were at A to B and we found our B to C. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that. Now you see, I mean, that's what whatever, that's what New England just did, and maybe that's what Dallas is doing. And so it's like, oh, it would have been so sweet if, like, the Bears were like, if they had whatever their Deion or their Vrabel or whatever, versus like, let me do football 101 leadership things. We're gonna cast a wide net, and that's how we're going.
I just think again, if he's gonna come to the NFL this year, it's to coach his son. I mean, he can come to the NFL whenever. He can continue to have success at Colorado or even take another step up to a college like Florida State. But to me, it just doesn't make sense to come to the NFL now, unless, of course, you're coaching Shedeur.
Well, yes and no, because I obviously that's been a huge goal of his. But here's the deal. He's not going to be coaching Shedeur at Colorado next year. He's not going to be coaching either of his sons at Colorado next year. So not coaching his kids is on the table either way. So if one of those options where he doesn't have his kids is the Dallas freaking Cowboys, where he won a Super Bowl, I don't know how you don't listen to that. Even in the context of Bill Belichick, gun to his head, guys, right now. You think Bill Belichick wants to be coaching the Dallas Cowboys or North Carolina Tar Heels next year?
Of course.
And I'm not trying to start something there. I'm just saying, like, you know, if they're going after Deion right now and then they pivot to Bill Belichick, like I'm not ruling that out either. It's completely two different stratospheres, all respect to those programs. It's really any college program. Coaching the NFL is the bigger stage. It just is. It's the biggest stage that exists right now. So I have to imagine Deion is taking this seriously. And I'm saying that despite the fact that our friend RK at DMVR is adamant, and they've been close to Deion the last couple of years because Deion's had a great relationship with our company and DNVR over there. And they seem convinced he's not going anywhere. But I don't know if that might have changed last night with some of this communication that's already been going on.
Time will tell on that one, but what RK says is what I believe. I just stick with RK. It's the way to live life. All right, we're going to take a closer look at one of the candidates that we really haven't put under the microscope. Hoge's been doing some extra work on Joe Brady. We'll do that next, but first, shout out to our friends at VeriLife. Looking for the perfect way to elevate your day? Let's hit up VeriLife Dispensary. They've got everything you need. Premium cannabis products to the expert advice you're looking for. New to cannabis connoisseur. They got the knowledgeable bud tenders. They've got 8 convenient locations across Illinois. They've got the price match guarantee, which ensures you get the best value by matching local competitors' prices to their eligible products. Don't miss out. Latest deals, exclusive offers only at VeriLife Cannabis Stores. And we're hooking you up here. Use the redeem code CHGO25. You mention that code in store, or if you order online and then pick it up in store, you're going to get 25% off one regularly priced item. Restrictions apply. Find a store near you, verilife.com.
That's right. And if you are somebody that made one of those healthy New Year's resolutions, or even if you're a pregnant worm and you're ready to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can feel right and feel great. No matter what life throws at you, Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. Lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals based on a randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results will vary depending on diet and exercise. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Reach your goals this year with ingredients you can trust and convenience that can't be beat. So, with Factor Meal, eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/CHGO Bears 50 off and use code CHGO Bears 50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code CHGO Bears 50 off at factormeals.com/CHGO Bears 50 off to get 50% off free shipping on your first box.
I think you should do that today. I think it'd be a great thing for you to do.
I think it would be a great thing for both of us to do.
I agree.
I think we should both eat Factor.
That's great.
And talk about
yes,
all our goals for this year.
That's right. Let's have some goals.
That's what we should do.
Okay, we're in.
All right.
Done and done.
Good.
See, we can be on the same team. All right. Let's pivot.
It's a very threatening Factor read.
Well, we both got to come correct here. It's time. Okay. His name is Joe Brady. Hoge's I can't hear Hoge. I don't think.
I'm just saying I don't like when you use that phrase.
Which phrase?
I'm not gonna say it.
What's the phrase? I didn't hear it.
Don't
what
worry
did he
about
say,
it.
Steven?
Don't.
Steven knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, that one.
All right.
Okay.
You know what?
Okay.
Grow up.
He says it once a show. He says it once a show.
This is the first time I've heard that I've been doing that. I will. You know what, Adam? I will try to be better. 1 every 2 shows from now on that one.
I always used to say course correct a lot.
I mean, listen, in my 50s, I think that should be like a once every 3 days, maybe 4 days. Okay, so at any rate, moving along, his name's Joe Brady. He hangs out in Buffalo. He's got a pretty interesting pedigree, dating back to LSU. You can even go further back than that. Hoge, why do you think the Bears are interested in Joe Brady? can be numerous ways you can go with this. What's your breakdown of the Bears' interest?
So let's talk about Joe Brady. Let's put him through the model here and talk about his full candidacy with some of the bigger categories and questions and factors that we need to talk about with Joe Brady. 35 years old, has now been in the league for just 7 years total overall. Had a couple of years with Sean Payton before he went back to the college ranks. Obviously had success at LSU. Not so great of a run with the Panthers, and then now with Josh Allen in Buffalo, it's been going pretty well. So our first question is always, do you win and can you lead? I think there's questions here. His winning percentage, you don't have much to go off as a player in the NFL. As a coordinator, it's a little above 500. So, but it's not a huge track record here to go off of. Relatively small sample size in terms of the leadership. I mean, that's one of the biggest questions left here with Joe Brady. If he's talking to the Bears, how would he command the whole locker room? Is he an alpha leader? I don't think he rises to that level that we kind of usually talk about with some of those more obvious candidates who are clearly alpha leaders. So question marks there. Ability to hire a strong staff. That's the next big factor. We always talk about the big three factors. This is number 2 on that list. And another one, well, I just don't know. He's only been in the league for 7 years. Didn't necessarily go well at the last stop. Does he have connections at 35 years old? I'm sure he has some, but can he put together a really, really good staff with the Bears? I would think that that's a question mark right now. In terms of offensive pedigree, if you want to just go off of what's going on with the Bills right now, you feel really good about it, right? Their offense, number 2 this year in EPA per play. Last year when he took over, he got a lot of credit. They actually dropped, though, in EPA per play from number 3 to number 6 after he took over as the play caller. Biggest question here, though, you got to dig into what happened in Carolina. And before I got more factors to talk about, but I'll bring you guys back into the conversation here a little bit. So do you guys remember off the top of your head who his quarterbacks were in Carolina when the Panthers were number 29 in EPA per play, towards the bottom of the league when he was running that Panthers offense?
Go ahead, Greg. I know you know the answer to this.
You don't have to know. I'm just trying to bring you guys back in the conversation. But the answers are Teddy Bridgewater, his first season, and then for most. Sorry, say that again.
Sam Darnold?
That's it. Sam Darnold was the quarterback for most of his second season before, remember, Brady didn't even make it to the end of that second season. He was let go in December. I think the Sam Darnold part of this conversation is something, if you're the Bears, you got to dig into. Because what have we been talking about all year with Sam Darnold? There's that sort of infamous photo that's been going around the internet of Darnold and Baker Mayfield together with the Panthers. And everyone talks about, Kevin O'Connell's been able to get out of Darnold. Well, it shows you how much coaching matters. Well, Joe Brady was his offensive coordinator in Carolina. We can't just ignore that. So, to me, there's a level of risk here. On the surface, you're like, oh, this would be great. Him and Caleb, great pairing. I mean, he's having his success with Josh Allen right now. Like, I like the wishful thinking. I like the hopefulness there, but I don't know. That just seems like a stretch to me. Before I keep going, I don't know if you guys have any response to that part of it, because I just feel like if you're going to go down the road here with Joe Brady, you really got to examine what went wrong in Carolina and compare it to what's seemingly going really well in a much better organization with possibly the MVP in Josh Allen.
Well, look, the Allen part of it, he's just got some really interesting things to say about Joe Brady, which excites me. Remember, he came in mid-season with them, right, and things turned. Right. And so that is impressive in itself.
He started picking up an emphasis to run the ball a little more.
Right. And then you listen to what Allen
says.
Guys,
I looked this up this morning. They were number 3 in EPA per play when they got rid of Ken Dorsey. I mean, it's not like they were a struggling offense.
Well, and wasn't it also that that Josh Allen was turning the ball over at a high rate as well. Wasn't that the other aspect of this?
That number surprised me because they were scuffling along to the point they made a change. I didn't realize their EPA was that high, which makes me question EPA along with a million other stats out there. But, I mean, this was Allen said this about him. He's been fantastic, coming into the situation last year. It's not easy to switch play callers mid-year, and he came in from that on day one. You look at our splits, our success we had as a team, it's noticeable. And then more importantly to the leadership part of it, I mean, this is one guy, and he's not going to say negative about his coach. I get all that. But this is what he says. He's one of the most positive guys in the building. He's always got juice and energy for the guys. I think that's something that we love and appreciate about him. He's as real as they come. Okay. I mean, again, one guy talking positive to the media about a coach going negative. But like that the juice part, as real as they come, those are things that I excite me as a Bears fan.
Well, and who did we hear that about in Chicago this year?
That would be Thomas Brown.
Thomas Brown. And I think there's a similarity with these guys that would be a concern of mine, and that is, correct me if I'm wrong, but Joe Brady, is a coordinator from the booth, right? And so how do you transition from calling plays in the booth, being that tell it like it is guy that people respect when you get back to the locker room after the game versus calling plays on the sidelines and doing all the things that Adam and all of us, we keep talking about here on the show, how much more responsibilities and how much different the job is being a head coach that calls plays versus an offensive coordinator that calls plays. And so that's where I'd have my reservation, because we simply won't know how he can handle that job until we get to September. He can say all the right things through the summer. He can be on the right track developing Caleb. And then if we get to September and his head's spinning because of all the in-game management stuff that has to go on from all three phases, now all of a sudden that's taking a hit with how you're calling plays. So, to me, that's my biggest concern with Joe Brady, even if there are things that are, that can be optimistic about.
Right. And all that's fair. I keep on just going back into what people say about him because that's what I do. At LSU, the dude was beloved. And he took, obviously he's Joe Burrow's the quarterback. That certainly helps
Justin
things.
Jefferson, Jamar Chase.
That's what I'm talking about here, guys. This is a classic case where if you look at Joe Brady, I'm not saying Joe Brady won't be a good head coach at some point. I just feel like this is too soon for him. There's not enough evidence here that says he's going to transcend the lack of talent he's probably going to inherit, or be able to just take Caleb and run with him. Because there's just you bring up every spot he was successful at LSU with Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson, and then he goes to Carolina and they were almost dead last in the league, and then he goes to Buffalo and he's got Josh Allen. All of a sudden things are great again. There's too many questions there I need to have answers. And then quickly, just to wrap this up in terms of the factors. So we talk about experience. This is another area where I'm saying some of the obvious things here. He does not have any head coaching experience. He's 7 years in the NFL. It's not nothing, but a lot of these candidates the Bears are talking to, and a lot of the candidates that my research that I've found that have had success, they've been in the league for 20 years before they become a head coach. So he's still inexperienced. I do like the fact that he spent some time with Sean Payton. I think that's a feather in his cap. I also like, I've talked about this before, I like when coaches have spent time on the other side of the ball. And he got into coaching, I believe, linebackers on the other side of the ball. So he's been all offensive since, but I do like seeing that on his resume. Some experience handling the media, obviously, as an offensive coordinator. Not quite in a large market, but that's on there too. The Bills this might surprise people. The Bills actually haven't been among the most aggressive teams in terms of decision making under Sean McDermott. So I don't really know if I can give Joe Brady a nod in terms of aggressiveness. There's really no connection to the NFC North or weakening a division rival. There's no connection to Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan. These are things I get bonus points to. And then in terms of continuity with the front office, you got to think if he's going to be a serious candidate with the Bears, he's not going to come in here being like, no, I need my own GM or anything like that. So overall, I get why Joe Brady's in the conversation, but to me, he does not come near the top in terms of strongest candidates for the Chicago Bears.
Well, and real quick, because I know we have our fine guest from DLLS coming up to talk about Mike McCarthy and Deion Sanders, but it should be noted. Well, I just would like to say, hey, let's give Joe Brady a little bit of credit. Everyone kind of wrote off the Bills to start the year, and they had a phenomenal year. Josh Allen had a phenomenal year, MVP level. So I'll give Joe Brady that credit. And then Kalen Kaler also put a spotlight on some things that maybe Bears fans don't know about Joe Brady and Caleb Williams' relationship going back to when he was much younger. And Kalen goes on to say, Joe Brady and Caleb Williams have a relationship going back to the summer of 2013 when 12-year-old Caleb met Brady as a camper at a William & Mary football camp.
That's
when
huge.
Brady was a linebackers coach at William & Mary.
Huge.
And Joe Brady was an offensive coordinator at LSU, and they were a front runner in Caleb's recruitment, and Joe Brady had a big influence on him potentially going to LSU. Obviously, Caleb Williams follows Lincoln Riley, but there is a history there between those two guys, which is why I think a lot of Bears fans like to attach Joe Brady to Chicago.
The Bears could do a lot worse is how I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to actually – when you really look at the coaching search right now, I know Bears fans are very nervous about this, but there's a lot of reason to believe that sort of wherever this falls, they're going to be in a better situation than they were at. We can talk about that in further detail down the line, like tomorrow. Hoge, you got to leave because Jesse Holley's ready to go. And do you have any final words of wisdom before we say bye?
That'll be good.
No, just keep checking that coaching tracker. We have more and more write-ups on almost every single candidate now is covered, and more to come in my newsletter for diehards. You can also remember the coaching tracker is completely free, allchgo.com/coaching search, and I guarantee you it's the most intuitive and best tracker out there. Continuously updated with information with Pat Norton and Kevin Kaduk behind the scenes on that too. But then we have a bunch of bonus diehard content as well within that you can click on, and there's plenty of that coming, including my newsletter. So become a diehard as well with that QR code on the screen or allchgo.com/diehard.
All right, Hoge, we'll see you in studio tomorrow.
See you later, guys.
There we go. All right, Jesse Holley coming up. We're going to talk Mike McCarthy. We're going to talk Deion. Talk a ton of stuff that Jesse is wildly entertaining. You're going to enjoy this. But first, shout out to our friends at Shady Rays. Get ready for the winter season. Spring coming up. The quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays, they got you covered. The premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company. You're supporting the good people here. They're rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Get yourself in. I mean, whenever I wear the Shady Rays, people start to respect me in ways that I just don't get respected clearly on this show. It's exclusively for our listeners. Shady Rays, best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com. Use the code CHGO. 35% off polarized sunglasses. That's right, 35% off. And they were already affordable. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. You could use some Shady Rays.
Just imagine if you wore Shady Rays and a muzzle, how much people would love and respect you.
That would be big.
Also got to give a shout out to our guys over at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. Me personally, when I hit up that app and they're able to give me, a vantage point, aerial view of the hottest deal, the super deals, the cheapest ticket in the house, it makes it all very easy. And then, of course, price up front. They don't mess with you on the ticketing window, showing you one price 5 windows later. It's a totally different price. Game Time is all about telling you what it is right up front. And then, of course, the panoramic view from your seat when you click on the seat you want, getting the perfect vantage point. And then, most importantly, lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage with your tickets, they are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So, with Game Time, take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. What time is it?
It's game time.
Who?
Thank you. All right. Down to Dallas we go. First time on CHGO Bears Podcast.
Let's go.
Jesse Holley, welcome. Appreciate you being here on Twitter. If you want to follow Jesse, it is as I, of course, clicked off Jesse's thing a second ago. That's a great job by me. But don't worry, I'll recover.
At Mr. Fourth and Long.
Thank you.
Mr.
At Mr.
Fourth
Fourth
and
and Long, one
Long.
of the coolest Twitter handles
got
that
you.
are going.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just start at the top here, Jesse. Should the Bears hire Mike McCarthy? What do you think?
No, honestly. If you're looking for innovative, if you're looking for something that's going to take Caleb Williams to the next level and his team to the next level, I don't think Mike McCarthy would be your head coach. Now, if you said to me that Mike McCarthy was coming in to be your head coach, but we were bringing in an offensive coordinator to pair with him, then I may say, okay, because he is good with the players. He takes care of the guys. That's one thing that you've heard resounding when it comes from the Cowboys locker room about Mike McCarthy, that he takes care of his players. He's a guy who does have some credibility. But the thing that kind of drew stale and old here in Dallas was that just Mike McCarthy just didn't have the modern day game really working for him. And he's, we've jokingly said about when he initially took the job, he talked about how he was in the barn and he was watching all of the film and then later found out that was a lie. He said that. That's not something I made up. But then you also, you hear his conversation. He talks about, hey, I'm a West Coast offense guy. I learned this offense 30 years ago. And that's the problem, is that you learned an offense 30 years ago and it's yet to be revamped, is yet to be revolutionized. And so you can still have some West Coast components, but step up into the pre-snap motion, step up into the setting plays up, step up into the, really getting guys open. You look at the numbers. The Cowboys in the last 2 years had the tightest coverage for contested catches in the league. They were up there in the top 2 or 3 every single year because the routes that come along with that offense just doesn't bode well for separation from receiver to cornerback. And so, listen, you guys, you got Caleb Williams. You're looking to take a leap into the 2025 season and really make a splash because you do have a dynamic quarterback. And you need to pair a dynamic quarterback with a dynamic play caller, play schemer, play maker. I used to say it publicly, steal. Just steal. Just sit in your office and just play back and watch games from other teams from college and say, hey, I need 3 plays from there, 3 plays from there, 3 plays from there, 3 plays from there. And hell, you got an offense that's a high-powered and explosive just by stealing the other things that you see from the innovative coaches across the league.
All right, well then, just from a solution-based standpoint, if the Bears were to hire Mike McCarthy, obviously they interview him tomorrow, and you're saying, his play calling isn't innovative enough, can he be the guy that comes in as the CEO type, puts more of his emphasis on developing Caleb Williams, and brings in a play caller to be the offensive coordinator and doesn't have that as part of his responsibility here in Chicago? Could you see that being a scenario?
Let me ask this question. And this is not a crap on Mike McCarthy day, because I was one when the hire was coming up. I thought he was going to be able to come in here and change, things. But when you start talking about developing the quarterback, like what are we developing here? Because I get that Brett Favre was Brett Favre, right? And Aaron Rodgers was Aaron Rodgers, right? And I don't think he developed Dak Prescott here in Dallas. Damn sure didn't develop Trey Lance. We were asking, what is Trey Lance? What is he as a player? Is he good? Is he bad? Can he be improved? Can he not be improved? So I just don't know if this is the guy that will develop Caleb Williams. I do think he will give structure. I do think he can teach ball. I think if there are some learning things that Caleb Williams has to kind of digest, I do think Mike can help with that. But again, you want the next step. You want the jump up. You want the thing that's going to take this thing and to outer space. The retread for me were these guys, their fundamental foundation of what they are as play callers, that's an old school mindset. And so you're talking about developing a new school athlete and a new school era with new school players. I just think you need a new school dude to do that.
Yeah, well, we're scared because we've failed when we've tried that.
Well, and right. And so I mean, Jesse, you played in the league 2 years with the Cowboys. Like the Bears players, they're looking for, at least from what I can tell, the alpha coach guy, because if you bring in what you're talking about, the scheme guy, and then the Bears can't run the scheme and he's not used to being the head guy, well, then where are you at? And then it's like, it's a sort of a slow drip to like, okay, you're out the door and let's try this again. So, I mean, that's kind of the concern here. Like if you put your playing shoes back on, would you be worried about the hotshot guy coming in here?
If I would welcome it. I want the guy to come in there with the new ideas, with fresh ideas. And when you talk about an alpha head coach, here's where I may be a little bit, when it comes to Mike McCarthy, maybe not even the best person to answer it, because the dynamic that is here in Dallas, it makes it very difficult for your head coach to be the alpha guy, because there is a, and this is not new or modern, and it's not just a Mike McCarthy thing. It was that way with Jason Garrett. I played for Jason Garrett. It was that way for Wade Phillips. The last time that you really truly had an alpha guy that was allowed to kind of, really let his kahunas hang and really be in charge was Bill Parcells. And there was even some pushback with that because he was giving players that he didn't even want, that he had to deal with. That's the part about being here in Dallas, is that you don't really get a chance to assert your alphaness because your owner, general manager, and president is the guy who the players who have contracts that are worth money, they go see that guy. That guy a lot of times handles those guys. So when you're hearing the conversations about being an alpha, look at the Zeke Elliott situation where, he gets suspended because he's cussing out his head coach and he's having some other issues and he's showing up late and things that have you. But the very next week he comes back in and he leads the team and carries. So it's like, but everyone knows that a guy like Zeke Elliott is not a Mike McCarthy guy. It's a Jerry Jones guy. So I would say that when it comes to being an alpha, I don't know how much that, because I didn't get a chance to see that in the 5 years that Mike McCarthy was here.
That's interesting. I mean, it's what we see from afar here, obviously, with Jerry wanting to be front and center all the time. But it's like, I mean, McCarthy was asked recently, campaign for yourself. He's like, well, I don't like to do that, but I win. That's what I do. And I was like, okay, well, that's, to use your terminology, that's putting your cojones out there pretty far. Like, hey man, look at my record. Look at do you see that Super Bowl ring? Do you see the fact that I had 3 straight seasons where I won 12 games in Dallas? When's the last time that happened down there, by the way? So, and plus, he knows the division. But here, let's pivot, because if we're talking about Jerry, he's moving towards Deion pretty rapidly here, and Deion appears to be interested. I was watching you on your Unfiltered show saying that, hey, or maybe that was a clip from elsewhere. You also got Unfiltered, very busy man. You're saying, look, I'll be the one to say it. Dallas ain't hiring a black guy. I mean, Deion is very much a black man. Do you think that this is a real thing with Deion going to Dallas? And if not, Bears fans are going to get real worried that, get excited that maybe Ben Johnson, or will get worried, that Ben Johnson might be the next candidate up here, and the Bears are going to lose out on their number one guy to Big D.
Yeah, I think the Jerry Jones, Deion Sanders conversation is all marketing, right? When you look at how things begin to come out, you look at this and you go, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Deion is currently in contract negotiations with Colorado, right? What does Jerry love more than anything? To have the attention of the media. Right? Like, you're talking about going into wild card weekend last week, and he was the lead story heading into wild card weekend. It was a Sunday's game because he talked about, potentially, or the Monday game with talking with Deion Sanders. And so this thing is so, you're not getting Shador, right? So Deion said, if I coach, I want to coach my sons. You're not getting Shador. Because if you cut Dak Prescott, you owe it's $100-something million towards the cap. That's not happening. Oh, by the way, he has a no trade clause, so that's not happening. I think the thing with Deion is Jerry just Jerry doing Jerry things, and Deion, the name sounds great, but most importantly, Jerry's ego could not take Deion Sanders being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. If you remember back to the early 90s when he and Jimmy Johnson broke up that dynasty that they had with Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and those guys, it was because Jerry couldn't take the fact that a lot of the people in the media were saying this was Jimmy Johnson's team. Jimmy Johnson built this team. This is the reason why this team is winning, because of Jimmy Johnson. And Jerry's like, hold the hell up 1 second now. I was the guy that was bleeding $1 million a month. I was the guy that hired this first-time college coach. I was the guy who brought these players in. This is on me. And they were like, yeah, but this guy. And I think that would be times 100 if it was Deion Sanders. He would become the most popular sports figure in the world if Deion Sanders became the head coach of the Cowboys. Deion Sanders is not going to let Jerry Jones push him around and tell him what to do and when to do it, how he wants to do it with these players, or how to build a roster. So it sounds great. It looks great. It makes great for media. Trust and believe you me. Your guys over at DLLS, we love it because it's giving us something to talk about all week long. But it's so far-fetched and so far from even happening. And not because he's black. It's because he's Deion Sanders. That won't work here in Dallas for Jerry Jones.
Do you think that the Cowboys messed this process up by waiting so long to figure out what they wanted to do with Mike McCarthy and now missing the window to talk to a guy like Ben Johnson, who now they have to wait until their season is concluded to get into this coaching search with him? And obviously there's a arms race between 4 teams trying to get Ben Johnson, and now the Cowboys have to kind of wait their turn.
Absolutely. On our show today, I went on a mini rant about just Jerry wasting time. And the thing with Jerry is that he believes that, the world spins on my axis, right? It's as the Jerry world turns. And so because I find it very hard to believe that you just figured out 2 days ago that Mike McCarthy wasn't going to be your head coach. Like, there had to be an inkling. There had to be some sort of notion that happened between now and then. You knew what the offer you were going to give him. If this was the route that you were going to do this, do it 7 weeks ago. Do it 6 weeks ago. Because now you have a head start. You could have interviewed Mike Vrabel, if that's where you wanted to go. But then you drag your feet, and you're talking about just the other day, you guys are just having a chance to review offense, defense, and players and personnel, and you didn't even get to contract negotiations yet. And then when you get the contract, like, it's just a lot of just stuff that, like, what else are you doing? Like, is this the most important thing on the ledger? Where is picking the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys fall on your honey-do list, right? Because this thing has to get going. And now if Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn or Kellen Moore or whatever other coach that you may have wanted to interview, at least to just have the conversation, you now have to wait. That means your scouts are kind of putting on hold because, hey, I know what players that we need, but will the players that we need fit what the coaches that come in here want offensively, defensively? And so these type of things you look at and you say, boy, did we waste some precious time just dragging our feet. But go back and look. This is how Jerry operates. He did the same thing with contracts, CeeDee Lamb's contract, Dak Prescott's contract. He'll probably do the same thing with Micah Parsons' contract. He did it with Zeke Elliott's contract. He did it with Zach Martin's contract. Like, he just decides, I'm going to drag my feet. I'm going to give them an offer that they're probably going to refuse, and then I'll, fiddlesticks around a little bit and come back to it later on and still have to pay out what I didn't want to pay out to begin with.
Did you happen to hear Troy Aikman's comments before the game last night where he talked about where he disagreed that Dallas isn't this, the place that everyone has to go, like the Lakers or the Yankees, of the NFL anymore, and that perception may be skewed by some because you say the world spins on Jerry's axis in his own mind, but is the Dallas job as enticing, from a perception standpoint around the league as maybe some Cowboys fans might think it is?
I think Cowboy fans are starting to realize that there's a difference between coveted and still being a good job, right? The Dallas Cowboys is still a good job. I agree with Troy. I don't think it's a coveted job anymore, because if it was, you would have had guys like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn and those other who everyone now is clamoring for. Those guys would have been rushing to get to this position. They would have made sure during the bye week that they reached out and just checked the temperature if that was going to happen. So I agree with Troy. I think that the Cowboys' job, because people are looking around and saying, man, I know that we're seeing from the outside, but we live in the age of social media where a lot of things are at our fingertips, and they're seeing how it is to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys and knowing the ramifications and what you have to deal with Jerry Jones being your boss. And it's a difficult job. It wears you out. Ben Johnson talked about, I want to be in alignment. I want to know that when I take a job somewhere that me and the general manager and I know where they went wrong. I know why they went wrong, and I know how they're going to fix it. I don't think you're going to get that if you come into Dallas. Jerry's going to be like, it was that guy. It wasn't us. But, a lot of times the common denominator of this thing in the last 27, 28, 29 years is you've been through many coaches. You've been through many Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame type players. The one common denominator is that you have to work under the conditions of which Jerry Jones put you under.
Two questions on the way out here, Jesse. Number one, in your opinion, better job, Dallas or the Bears?
Ooh, Dallas. Yeah. Well, I think the Bears are still trying to find their way. At least with Dallas, you're going to win a little bit more games. You're going to be in the national spotlight. You're going to have the national televised games. And if for some reason, and I know that the Bears are a historic program, but if for some reason, if you turn the Bears around and they won a Super Bowl, it would not have the same effect if you turn the Cowboys around and they won a Super Bowl. So that's always the hanging fruit of you will go down as a legend if you turn around the Cowboys and take them back to glory.
That one's, we'll fight you on that one. If you win in Chicago, Jesse, there is no better place to do it. Damn it. Look at Ditka. They're still talking about him to the end of the year.
Yeah, in Chicago.
Well,
not around the world. Not around the world.
Well, okay, fine. If you want to say that, I mean,
get him out of here.
I mean, I suppose if MJ was a Mav, they'd still be talking about him. But
the hardest hit you ever took from a Chicago Bear in your playing career. Now that you're making me mad.
Ooh, the hardest hit. It was me hitting Devin Hester.
Oh,
that's really gonna make him mad. This is Devin Hester's cousin. You wouldn't know.
That's interesting. I'd like to hear that story because not too many people could catch him.
I know we had a good plan for Devin Hester.
There you go. I like it.
Well, okay. Let me do one more on the way out. If the Bears hire Mike McCarthy, the best thing about, I'm not saying they're going to, but whatever. He's in that second tier, I think. If the Bears hire Mike McCarthy, the best thing about that for Chicago will be, and the worst thing on the other side is,
you'll have stability. The players will like Mike McCarthy. You'll have some stability. You'll have some consistency. The players will like Mike McCarthy. The worst thing is that McCarthy won't get you past the Vikings. He won't get you past Green Bay. You'll be competitive, but you'll still be kind of looking up to those other guys in the division.
I mean, I think some Bears fans would take that. Oh, we're in the mix. They like it. We're not a disaster. We go to the playoffs.
You won't be a disaster. You won't be a disaster. That part, you won't be a disaster.
Yeah. Well, as my guy Scott Lewis said from 79th in the House, he said Mike McCarthy has 11 playoff wins in his career. If you count the Bears' last 11 playoff wins, you have to go all the way back to 1963. Do what you want with that information.
Shout out Ed Obradovich. Hey, Jesse, this was a ton of fun. We appreciate you making time. We know you're a busy guy doing a million things, so thank you for the knowledge and the entertainment.
Absolutely. I'm going to go shampoo my floors now.
There you go.
Jesse Holley, former Cowboy, DLLS host.
That's right.
They're
killing
the
it down
podcast.
there.
They're crushing, man.
They get Deion. Look out, man.
Yeah, well, according to Jesse, that's not happening. It's just a whole
ruse.
It's a ruse, which means we could get him.
Man, I need the Raiders to start getting in on the Deion action now, and then they could get Shador, and then we can just put away all this Ben Johnson to the Raiders stuff. Like, to me, that's what we need.
You're worried about the Raiders, huh?
Well, yeah, I'm worried about everything right now.
Who's the Raiders quarterback?
Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah, Ben Johnson wants to come here. He wants to be a Bear. He does.
He does.
He wants to be a Bear.
I agree.
He absolutely wants to be a Bear.
Just playing the leverage game.
But can I just try to make to Bears fans who are panicking point? Let's just say hypothetically they ended up with Mike McCarthy. How much better is that than Matt Eberflus, Matt Nagy?
Right.
It's better,
Yep.
right? How much? let's say it's Ron Rivera. Did he not go to the Super Bowl with the Carolina Panthers? Let's say it's Pete Carroll. I don't think it's going to be any of these three, but I'm pretty certain he won a Super Bowl and had 14 seasons over 500 of his 18 in the NFL, and also has won on every level. Joe Brady. You telling me you're not intrigued by what Joe Brady would do with Caleb in that offense? I'd be super intrigued by it.
I'll be nervous, but I'll be optimistic for him and hopeful that it works out. But there'll be some nervousness.
Well, of course.
There's going to be nervousness no matter what.
You're going to be nervous.
Right? But overall, to your point, I do think this coaching cycle, everybody's laughing at the amount of candidates the Bears have looked at, but I do also think that it puts a little bit of a spotlight on the fact that there are a lot of reasonable candidates that are worthy of being interviewed. I think last year it was a lot less. So, I think timing-wise, it has worked out. Now you throw Deion Sanders into the mix. That's just another candidate that's going to bump the list down of people that, are worthy of getting one of the 32 head coaching jobs here, in the NFL. So this could still work out for Chicago. We're all hoping for Ben Johnson, but I do think that there are good options on the table. Just Bears fans are always, they get tunnel vision, and this is kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, listen, and J to the H or whatever, you're now off the screen, so I forget your exact moniker. I'm not settling for anything there, J without the H. I'm just pointing out that if you're just trying to be realistic about what's coming, maybe listen, I think Ben Johnson's going to choose to be here. And it's
right. I think all of us, we're not settling. If it was our decision, Ben Johnson would be the Bears head coach as soon as the Lions season ends. But we have to also be realistic and reasonable that may not happen.
Yes, and I go back and forth on whether I'd hire somebody who's seasoned and done it a la Pete Carroll that I've been talking about versus the hotshot guy. But if you want to make the play and roll the dice with Ben and his offense and pairing him with Caleb and seeing how that works, and if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to sit there and turn around in 3 years or however long and be like, that made no sense at the time. That won't be the case. Now, last year, keeping Matt Eberflus made no sense at the time.
Made no sense. Well, it was hard to defend because I had fired him 6 times, and apparently he didn't get that memo. But I always said them keeping Matt Eberflus last year, I could at least understand the logic of it. As Gary Ross has told me 1,000 times in our chat and another 1,000 times in text.
It all comes down to Gary. We know this.
Jim Harbaugh was never coming here because Ryan Poles was not going to fire himself. Jim Harbaugh was never going to come here because he wanted to go to L.A.
I thought that was more of a Kevin Warren thing more than anything else.
Right, Jim Harbaugh was never going to come here because Kevin Warren and him don't like each other. Whatever the case may be, he was never coming here is the overall point people try to make, as much as we all want to opine about the fact that he's not here. But then, okay, who are the other options last year? Who was Ben Johnson? But he had less of a resume at the time. I think Bears fans right now you should have hired Ben Johnson last year. Well, last year at the time, it would have been a little riskier. Let's just be fair to the conversation. So who else? Who else would you have hired last year? And so that's where I understood the logic of running it back. But, I also knew that Matt Eberflus had a lot of flaws. So didn't work out this year, unfortunately.
What's the guy's name in Washington who just took his team to the playoffs and is still
Dan Quinn.
Well, right. Now, that was 2 years ago, but he was also available last year, too.
Right.
Listen, there was we don't need to relitigate the Matt Eberflus.
You're going to fire Matt Eberflus to hire Dan Quinn.
Anyone.
No, if you're going to fire Matt Eberflus, it's to bring in somebody that's going to pair up with Caleb Williams.
Well, what's your plan for the quarterback? And he would have said, well, I'm going to hire Cliff Kingsbury. And then we said, well, that's sweet.
Bill Belichick was also available.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah, there was tons of names available.
But the coaches we were looking at last year that made sense, that's why I was banging the table, and most of us were for Jim Harbaugh.
Mr. Perry saying Vrabel was available, too. Like, everybody wants him
right,
now. Nobody
but the point was last year at this time, we were saying fire Matt Eberflus and pair your coach up with Caleb Williams. So, like, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, these guys, they don't line up with what we were trying to do. We wanted an offensive coach to line up with
yes
Caleb
and no.
Williams.
I mean, if you hired, if that was your decision last year, we're hiring a guy and I understand that the culture was a lot better at the end of last season than it ended up being this year. But you would have been hiring a guy to be the huge adult in the room leader, and he's going, and well, who's his OC that he's bringing in? Whatever. The bottom line is it was a horrible miscalculation, and now this net is awful wide. Assuming they don't go completely off the board and hire Drew Petzing, which I'd give them a 2% benefit of the doubt on something like that. But if they don't, they're talking to a lot of very seasoned coaches who have a significant floor of level of success.
I'd rather have Cliff Kingsbury than Drew Petzing or Joe Brady, personally.
You'd rather have Kingsbury than Brady?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, he calls plays from the sidelines. He's been a head coach, so he understands what the totality
twice,
of the job.
Though.
I understand. You learn from your failures.
Well, look
at you.
Do you?
Look at you.
Do you learn from your failures?
Yeah, I do. I'm about to fail this laptop over your head as our boss is standing 10 feet from us.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt on a lot of these guys. Just don't give me Drew Petzing or don't give me Anthony Weaver. Give me somebody who's done something.
And Dan Quinn's had a nice season, no question. They have the 30th. I think they're ranked 30th in rush defense. That chicken's going to come home to roost this week. And they certainly really walked right into Cliff Kingsbury, who has been a home run for them. And Cliff Kingsbury was supposed to be hired by the Raiders, and that all fell apart at the last second, which led to Washington being able to get Cliff Kingsbury. And they were trying to get Ben Johnson last year, and that all fell apart on them. So sometimes, fate has it where it just works out. So you can point to Washington as the model, but they had a lot of good fortune at this time last year go their way.
As we end up the show here, Greg, before we get to Super Chats, just going to give you a reminder from a great man. I know you're tired of waiting, being patient, trusting the process, and sitting by the wayside. I know you are, Greg, Bears fans. It's time. It's time, and I'm going to tell you again, it's time. Step up to the plate, dig in, and look for your pitch, baby. It's time for you to shine.
Okay.
It was Coach Prime on January the 10th.
Prime.
Coach Prime, January the 10th.
Yeah.
Coach Prime, January the 8th. Your patience is one of your greatest assets. Be patient. Be mindful. Be ready. You got it? Patient, mindful, ready. Everything won't be perfect like you want it to be. But that's where your work ethic and your patience comes in. Take your time and be ready when the right opportunity presents itself. Coach Prime.
I like it. It's very good. That almost sounds like the book that AJ
Brown was reading on the sideline.
What was the name of that book again?
The name of that
Inner
book.
Peace.
The name of that book, yes, was a very good memory, Gregory. It indeed was Inner Excellence.
Inner Excellence.
Very
That's
close.
What it was.
Jim Murphy.
Did you? Because I was listening on my drive up, where I think Cap was talking about it with Jay Hood, where they said that was 550,000th ranked book, and now it's the number one selling book on Amazon right now.
Oh, there it is. That was yesterday's show. And speaking of yesterday's show, we talked about the picks in the first round of Wild Card Weekend.
I knew he was coming back to this.
Yeah.
And now I get my flowers. I like this.
So excited about this.
Well, you get sort of flowers. I mean, the bottom line is that
look at sort of flowers.
Look
at how he gave you sort of flowers.
Well, he picked the Rams last night, and so did I. So Steven finishes up the week 3-3,
alongside
you and Hoge, also 3-3. And once again, not surprisingly, after I won the picks contest this entire season,
it's not fair. I didn't want to pick against. Spread.
I'm with Braggs on this one. For second round, can we just do picking them straight?
No, they don't want to.
Oh.
Why would we
stupid?
Pick, why,
if we picked them straight, I got the Ravens
no gimmies here in the postseason. Anybody could win.
We're upping the degree of difficulty. This is what we do. We are elevating.
Stupid.
We're going to the next level.
Stupid.
And yours truly, once again, top of the mountain, 4-2. You could say, congratulations. Way to go, Carm.
No, I will not.
I respect your knowledge, Carm, that I yell
Sign
at all
on
the time.
Sign on the set. Sign on the set. It says quiet Carm. That was a win-win for me yesterday. That was my reverse psychology going into play, I picked the Vikings, but I didn't want them to
you
win.
were hedging.
Do you think the Vikings officially are out on Sam Darnold after the last 2 games?
Well, and I mentioned that to Hoge after the Detroit game. I'm like, man, this is huge implications for his money, and he said no. I disagree. Do you think at this point that Minnesota is going to give him a contract extension? I think the most likely scenario is a franchise tag. I don't think they can invest long-term in Sam Darnold. I really don't.
I do think that the market for him,
If you didn't have J.J. McCarthy sitting there, that's a different discussion. But they do. So, like, to me, franchise tag, even at the insane clip it's at.
Look, looking panicked in the pocket in the playoffs and losing to Detroit last week in the way they did, it's not good for Sam Darnold.
9 sacks last night.
You're right. So,
Nowhere to run, and not getting the ball out of his hands. So that just kind of goes to show you, like, what we've dealt with this year. Like, there's a lot of different variables that go into why someone gives up a sack. But, 9 last night by a quarterback that had, 4,500 yards and 4,100 yards, 4,200 yards and 35 touchdowns. So, it's
in another point where Carm was right, like as Andre Skinner's putting in the chat, Vikings Center Division, yes, signed Darnold for 10 years. I said that 3 weeks ago. Like, this could be great for the Bears. Unfortunately, he imploded a little too early. So maybe they won't. I don't know.
Yeah, I think either way, I think he cost himself a lot of money. I mean, he could have been looking at a $40 million deal if he takes him to the NFC Championship game. Instead, now we're talking about a late season collapse, including a postseason game. Maybe he only gets 25 to 28 million annually now.
And it's crazy to me too, because the Rams, played great last night. The Vikings looked like they didn't even want to be there. And it would, to me, to have that kind of attitude, I could have understood that if it was the Rams after everything they dealt with in the last week. But they were locked in, and the Vikings looked completely disinterested.
Well, where it also could play out, and unlikely, I'm stretching here, but like, let's say the Vikings no longer are as in on Sam, and that word gets out a little bit, and you're Ben Johnson and you're talking to the Raiders, and you have some level of interest there, and they're like, well, hey, how do you feel you could do with Sam? Because we think we can go get him. Like, there's a million ways this could spin, to overstate the obvious. But I still would anticipate if I had to bet on what's going to happen, I think the Vikings will still tag Sam Darnold. Tag. Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Then can we trade for Kevin O'Connell? Because, like, he's a fraud, right? Come on, Vikings fans.
Yeah, you don't want him
he's
anymore.
He's a fraud.
Well, to that point, though, Brian Flores is now available. You can talk to him.
They win all these one-score games. They're lucky.
Before we wrap, real quick, I had a thought yesterday. I was talking to Jake. I want to pitch it to you guys.
Flores tomorrow. Call him. Bears.
Ian Cunningham, if he does end up signing to become the Titans GM, we get those 2 third-round picks.
Yeah.
That's a lot of draft capital to use in a potential coach trade. And I know we already have 1,000 names on the list, but 2 more thirds, not bad.
That's fair, and he is having a second interview, although they're not. Bears aren't trading for a coach. I would bet large sums of money that's not happening.
Well, I did everything I could for Kyle Shanahan. No thanks to anyone around here. And you know what?
Brad.
To your point about Brian Flores, like, after what he showed last night,
that was a rough night for him.
Rough night. I don't
give Matthew Stafford his flowers, man. Give Sean McVay his flowers. They had a phenomenal game plan.
Sean McVay is a great coach who I'd love to trade for.
He wants to be a Bear. There's no doubt about it. Listen, Greg, you've got to want it like never before, which will lead us to living with a purpose.
I thought you were doing like an ad read.
On purpose like no other. Your purpose will get through the pain and agony of the moments that challenge you the most. Stay focused and steadfast. You got this. Another memo from Coach Prime. Prime. Coach. Deion. Entertainment. Bears. George, it'd be so entertaining. If you get down to Drew
we don't care if you win. Just entertain
If you get
us.
down to Drew Petsy because you don't know what you're doing and Deion's still out there, go hire Deion. It would be lovely for all of us. All right. Tomorrow,
we got
Hoge's
super chats.
Tomorrow, Hoge's back in studio.
I'll put one in real quick. I'll put my super chat. I'll be from my cold dead hands. Where the hell is Crystal? Wake up, Crystal.
No, Crystal, you're good.
No. It's not good.
Yeah.
Mike Grom. Where's that jerk earlier that was telling me to put my phone down? Put a super chat in with your big mouth. Who was that guy?
Grom's with Blake. He doesn't like my latest bit, which is not a bit.
Oh, yeah,
Hey, shout out.
Your precious Hoge is in here.
Shout out.
So you don't put in a super chat.
Shout out.
Forget all of you. Especially you, Grom.
Hoge was here. Don't go at Grom.
I'm going at Grom.
No, we don't do that. Shout out to Kevin in the store. Yes, across the way. We're supposed to have lunch with him today, Braggs, but the windows are being put in.
He's getting his windows.
The windows look amazing. Great new windows. He's upgrading. Crystal's here and she says hello to you, Braggs. And you're not begging Crystal for money because Crystal gives us enough money. Hey, thank you for watching.
Hold on, I gotta get the super chat in. Jeez, stall like you always do.
I mean,
your big mouth.
You know, I actually have a lot that I could. Certainly, Grom, new to the chat, but very consistent.
My mom's in the chat. Son, be nice. I think we should have a pool to see the picks the date when the Bears. You know what, Mom? Let us run the show here, okay?
2 hours from Greg Braggs. Where is Crystal? That is funny. All right, we got $2 extra in the kitty for.
Mike Grom's a diehard. All right, shout out to you. We got the super chat in.
Grom, you're the man.
I'm just disrespectful.
All right.
Next time you guys do a show where Hoge's not here and you don't put a super chat in, then Hoge will not return. That's final warning.
Okay. We're saying goodnight. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Hoge will be here. Yes, it's late.
I gotta shovel my driveway.
You gotta drive me to 2 locations today.
I'm not driving you anywhere.
You are. You
I'm
are.
not.
You are. You absolutely are. I can't wait. I've got a lot to talk about with you, so we'll do that. Maybe we'll go in the Discord and hang out. That's what we'll do. We'll be on Discord in 15 minutes. We'll see you then. Say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.